Hey everybody! Today we'll be doing a full fish room tour looking at every fish tank that I have in the fish room currently. And I figured we'd do that now since I'll be adding a new rack here, removing this fish tank and this fridge and adding another rack. And I was also able to start my own website, fishboyusa.com. And that's all thanks to the support I've been getting from you guys in the YouTube community. So thank you all so much for that. I'm so appreciative. And with that, let's get started. Figured we'd start here in the middle rack since it's got a lot going on. We've got, in this 5.5 gallon, we have some platinum rice fish fry. This is the first mop that I had pulled from them because I got them recently. We got a really good size spawn here, so that's always a good sign. Right next to them we have some Blue Daisy's rice fish. In this group, I did get 12 of them and ended up 10 males, 2 females. So I've been having a hard time spawning them. I still get, some fry when I do try to spawn them, but it's not like this where there's a lot of fry and it's worth raising the whole batch all the time. Next to them, we have some orange lamé, orange Medaka rice fish. And these guys are really cool because they have a nice sparkle to them. And since I have these guys in a tank versus in a pond, I really appreciate when the Medaka rice fish look really nice from the side. And we also have these blue neon gobies, which are becoming one of my favorite fish. They're really fun to watch and they're always jumping around the tank. You can see the way that they move. They're hanging on the glass or they're always doing something funny. So this tank is really fun to look at. We've got some pearlweed in the back, as well as some dwarf sage in here. We've got the Ceru stone. They're really enjoying that. And here's my breeding group of the platinum rice fish. I have a video on how I breed the Medaka rice fish, if you're interested in viewing that. But this is the basic setup that I have, and they're doing really well in here and spawning a lot for me. In this tank, I have kind of a hodgepodge of things, kind of accidentally happened. So the rice fish in here were ones that I bought as the pearl rice fish, and they looked white when I got them and then turned, they had some orange in the fins, and so this was their quarantine tank, and then I moved them over, and they turned out to be fry in here. So I let them grow up in here to see what they become before I start breeding the pearl ones. So far they look orange to me, so I'm not sure if I'm going to pursue that line, if they're going to not breed true or they're going to throw out a lot of orange. But the real prize in this tank, and kind of the secret project I've been working on, is the guppies in here. These are the white Moscow guppies, the ones that you see in Petco, the ones that you only get the males for, those pure white looking guppies. I ended up getting a fry pack from somebody who's breeding them. So I was really excited, and these guys are finally growing out, starting to show some color. You can see that one there's sexing out to be a male. So I'm hoping that I can get a line of these going, because those are a really nice fish in Petco, but you can only get the males from them for whatever reason. You can never find the females anywhere. So I know I have females in this group. I'm hoping that they raise up and breed true, and that'd be available for people to get that strain. This tank we have the orange Australian killifish. We have a random Cirrus rock in the middle and Pogostem and Stellatus octopus there. These guys are getting to retirement age. You can see that female there. She's had that swim bladder issue for like 4 months now, but she's living her life in there, and that's fine with me. She's doing really well. We also have one random female Notho killifish that I lost a male to. Those are the annual killifish, so I did get a bunch of eggs from them that have to incubate in dry peat for like 5 months. So I won't have any more of those for a while those eggs incubate. And over here, we've got the Santa Claus guppies that I just don't have any luck with getting fry. The male's hiding in the back right now, but these are the females I have. And what I like about this tank is the frog bit, the size of the frog bit. It's giant, and then you can see like from this view here that people don't see very often. The frog bit connecting, how it spreads. You can see this is pretty big pieces, the biggest I've seen since I do raise it indoors. I'm sure it gets that size no problem outside, but inside it's hard for me. I've never seen it that big, but probably because it's so close to the light. So maybe one day I'll get fry out of these guys. And right below these guys, in this 20-gallon, is the Japan Blue Gold Double Sword Guppies. These guys have been a real popular seller. Believe it or not, all the adult pairs in this tank are sold, just waiting to ship them out. And also in here we have some cherry shrimp that have just exploded. The more you look, the more you see more cherry shrimp. And because they're so popular, I've actually had to make sure that I have a steady supply of them. So I've talked about this in another video, but I do the hang-on breeder box now, where I put a female that's ready to drop in there, and I wait for her to drop, that way that none of the fry are eaten. I mean, she might eat some, but you know, if fry are born in this tank, you have 100 mouths that would eat the fry, and in the breeder box there's only one. So this is like, you know, it's dirty. This is time, just about time to move these fry into the main tank, and then the next female, who looks the most gravid, probably this big female right here, will go in that breeder box until she drops. This tank we recently cleaned up a bit. This is a 40-gallon breeder with my Bozemanai Rainbowfish. These are the Gary Lang strain that I got as 1-inch fish and raised them up, and I do breed these guys now. We've also got some rosy barbs in here, and we've got a jungle val in the back, Eco Complete substrate, which I need to add a bunch more to, because I think I want to carpet some dwarf Sagittaria. I forgot to mention here, this is dwarf Sag, but I think I want to add it to this tank and just have it, you know, carpet this tank. You see we have one rogue green laser cory. In the video that we cleaned up this tank, I moved all the super red bristlenose Plecos and the green laser corys out. It was such a mess to pull this tank apart and get all those fish. I thought I got them all, but one cory eluded capture, so I'll have to get him somehow. And in this tank we have the yellow Tiger King Cobra Guppies. This is becoming one of my favorite strains. I really love the males. They have a nice pattern to them. And the females even, it's hard for it to be picked up on camera, but they have like spotting to them on the body, which is really nice. These guys have done really well for me. I had fry within 2 weeks of getting them. We've got some bulbitis on this driftwood tree here that every couple months you can see it's got some algae on it, that I have to spray it with hydrogen peroxide every couple months just to get rid of that. For whatever reason, it keeps growing in this tank. I've added even a fast-growing plant, this random high-growth species. I'm not sure which one it is exactly, but it's a faster grower, and I figured that would help with the algae, but so far it hasn't. And then we've got some random crypts, and you can see more algae in there. That's alright, the fish like it, it's just I don't like looking at it. And below these guys we have a big spawn of the red cap koi Medaka rice fish. When they're down low I can appreciate looking at them, you know, a top down view, but if we take a look, there's a ton of fry in here. There's also a ton of snails in here that help clean up after, so you can tell I'm feeding pretty heavy. Just want to make sure that none of these guys are, you know, the competition for food in this tank is pretty high, so I just want to make sure that they're getting enough food to eat, which looks like they are because we have a ton of them. In this 75-gallon, it's just pretty much a holding tank at this point. I talked about in my last tour that I was going to redo this whole tank and get new fish and start a really fun project, but unfortunately because of the quarantine we've been put on hold. You know, because we've got a ton of Anubias on rock here, the Dragonstone. You can see the random Anubias there, and you know, I don't even bother scraping the algae on this tank. We've got a bunch of barbs in here. This was a nice, fun barb tank. You can see we got some super red bristlenose that I moved from the 40-gallon down there. But something that is cool about this tank is we have the pothos up top here. You can see it stretches, it's starting to go down all the way that way. But the root structure on it, you know, that's staying for sure for the tank redo. The way it just goes, now it's like creeping into the Eco Complete. I really like that look, and it also helps with nitrates, even though these are all on auto water change. For the next project, it's going to be high bio load, so any extra filtration is appreciated. And next to that, we've got some fry of the black Medaka rice fish. Let's see if we can see any. Yeah, you can kind of see them there swimming. This is a bit of a younger spawn, so it's hard to see them right now. But I only have 6 of those as adults, so there's not as many fry, but I'm hoping to grow these out and then really start cranking them out. But we'll see those later. Moving on to the next rack here. Up in this 10-gallon, we have an older spawn of the red-capped koi Medaka rice fish. What's cool about this strain is that they all have different patterns to them. They're meant to be viewed from the top down. So looking down at them, they have different orange patches on them. So they look like little koi, and they all have different patterns unique to them. You know, some of them have the orange right on the front, where the red cap comes from. But some of them just have patterns randomly on them, which I think is really nice. We'll see that in the adults later on. But we got the dwarf sedge carpet again going in here, and some Java moss on this little driftwood tree here, and some random water sprite that was a tiny, tiny little plant that grew floating on the top there. I think that looks nice. And over here we have the short body or balloon orange Medaka rice fish. So we could see one here that's more of a balloon. That one I got from someone on Craigslist, as well as 4 other ones that didn't look too good. 2 of them didn't look good. The eyes, I think that they were blind. The rest of them are from my line. And, you know, when you breed 300-400 of a fish, you're bound to get some deformities. But in this case, these deformities, the short body is actually, you know, considered another strain. So I figured I'd introduce some new genetics into this strain, some healthier genetics with mine that are not as balloon. They're more of a short body. But I think if I work with these guys, I could get some nice fry that are healthier and, you know, can live a little bit better and breed easier. This tank is my yellow Neo Corydoras shrimp. Originally these were all shrimp tanks, but I ran out of room in the fish room, so I started putting fish in with the shrimp. Except for this tank, because the yellow Neo Corydoras shrimp have just always done well for me. We have a ton in here right now. I just pulled like 100 and distributed them out into random tanks and sold some. So there's not a lot in here right now. The tank's a mess because I pulled out the water sprite and, you know, it didn't like that and kind of melted back a bit, but it'll regrow and the shrimp don't mind. This next tank we have some panda Corydoras. I'm growing these guys out to hopefully breed them. And these are the pearl Medaka rice fish. Can't really see the color too well right there, but they were like a platinum white, and then as they grew up, you could see that one's got the orange in the fins there. So I wanted to see if they breed true, what's happening, and I don't know so far. I still have to let those fry that we just saw grow out some more, but we got the Cirrostone and Pogostem and Salas octopus that is growing really nice in this tank. I like the look of it. Here's a new fish to the fish room. These black Corydoras. I really like these. I've been looking for them for a long time. You can see they have the nice orange fins to them. And we've got them on the aquarium co-op sand. This is just their quarantine tank right now. I put the Dragonstone in there to give them some cover, but I think that they are perfectly fine in here, very comfortable, eating well. I've had them for like 2 weeks in here. I'm hoping to breed them. The person I got them from says that they're about 3 months old, and they breed around 7 months for him. So be looking forward to that. You know, you can see, obviously I have them on the sand because I want to see them. All my other tanks have Eco Complete. So I put these guys on the Eco Complete. I know I wouldn't be able to appreciate them. So whatever their permanent tank is, they'll be on this sand. And I think they like the cover. The frog bit is also acting as a cover. Kind of blocks the light, but also makes them feel they have something above them. Just wanted to make sure that they were comfortable, but I also wanted to observe them. But I'm glad they're doing really well. Here's the breeding group of the red cap koi Medaka rice fish. I'll get a top-down view in a second, but we'll look at these guys right now. So you can see this guy is completely orange. So that's not what I want in the line. So he wasn't completely orange when I first got them, but after quarantine he turned completely orange. So that guy gets, you know, he gets pulled when I breed them because I don't want a full orange one mixing in. You see, this guy's a good example of the red cap. Just the orange up front and nothing else. The other ones have the pattern more on the top. That's why I'll switch to the top-down view in a second. But another nice strain of the rice fish. And this is another spawn of the red cap right there. Went a little crazy breeding those. I'm glad I did because they're turning out to be really popular and I'm already sold out. So these will probably be the next batch. They're growing up in this 5.5 gallon. Probably be ready in a month or two. So it's hard to fully appreciate them with the glare there. But you can see the different patterns on these guys. You know, like that one there has a nice orange in multiple spots. I really like these guys. I think I have to move them to a lower tank so I could appreciate them more, because they don't look that special when they're in a tank with a side view, but these guys really look great when you're looking at them down, because these are tiny little koi, perfect for an outdoor tub. You know, if you don't have a giant pond for koi fish, these are a nice alternative. In this next tank, in this 20 gallon, we have my Longfin white clouds. And I've bred all of these except for I think I have 6 left of the original breeders. You can see these guys are getting some nice long fins to them. And I just recently started breeding them again in another video, the Day in the Fish Room series. We went over this tank in more detail. We have some random 24 karat gold guppy in there that was a tiny little fry that raised up in there, so it's turned out to be a female. So I'm keeping her in here right now because I'm gonna breed her with one of my best males, since she hasn't been hit by any other guppies. She's just been with white clouds. We've got the Amazon sword in the back there with some spiderwood and dwarf sag. We have some cull shrimp in here, some from my blue dream line that are brown, so they just stay in here. We've got the sand in here as well. One of the only other tanks that has the sand. And this next tank, this 40 gallon, has the 24 karat gold guppies, the fish that inspired the logo for my channel, since they are my favorite guppy. Really hard strain initially to work with, but finally acclimated to full fresh water. We've also got some blue-eyed lemon bristlenose plecos in here. I've got an adult pair, that's the female there. The male's hiding in the cave. Also got a ton of cherry shrimp in here. All the pleco fry. Also assassin snails. And they haven't been eating the shrimp at all. I haven't noticed it. And we've got some water sprite here. And some crypt when dead eye bronze. The Zero Stone again. And the willow hygro. See if the male is in the cave. Oh, he's not. I wonder where he's at. I also have some larger ones that I've kept, like that one there. It's a larger fry that I kept as a future breeder, since I only do have a pair right now. You can see a nice male there. He's getting older, but you know his fins there, they're getting a little tattered, but he's my main breeding male from a recent generation. And in this next tank, we have the blue Mosaic big ear strain. You can see the two big females in here are my original females. I unfortunately lost the male that they came with, the original trio. We have a ton of fry in here. I'm waiting to see if they breed true. Some of them look like they have yellow in the tail. That's not what I'm looking for. The male I originally had was beautiful. I'm gonna put a picture of him right up here. He looked really great. And some of the fry, you can see some of the males are getting a nice blue to them. So we'll see. I have to let these guys grow out. But I have a lot of yellow shrimp in here as well. And some spiderwood and this random hydro that when I was trying to buy the willow hydro there, I was sent this one. And I don't know what that is, but it does well in the tanks. And the dwarf sage again. And right below these guys in this 10-gallon, we have the tank that I call the miracle tank. So we've got, what we can see right now are 3 random guppies. And these guppies are in here because with the auto water change system, all the water overflows from each tank into a sump, and then that sump is pumped outside. And occasionally I'll clean that sump out, and I found these 3 tiny fry in there, you know, probably a month old at the time. And I don't know how they survived in there because, you know, it's just a sump in the floor, and I pump all different temperature water in there. When I'm cleaning equipment, it's boiling hot water that goes in there. I don't know what they were eating in there, but they survived for a long time in there. So these guys are really hardy. I'm waiting to see what strain they are, or I might keep them since they are hardy and see if I can start my 75-gallon project with them. That gives you a hint what that project is. Also in this tank, you can see all the peat here. Originally this tank was a failed blue Gularis Killifish project. You can see it in the back there before she zooms away. There's one blue Gularis Killifish in here. So I wish I paid closer attention to it. I bought some eggs off someone in Aquabid, and I put the peat in the water in the dates that I was told to. And for a week I was looking. I didn't get any fry at all. And then I left the tank for, you know, a couple weeks. And then I started looking at it again when I put these guppies in there. And I noticed I had that one blue Gularis Killifish in there. And I don't know what she was eating or how she survived in there, but I wasn't feeding for weeks. I kind of just left this. It's been sitting. And, you know, if I had paid attention, there might have been more. And in this 75-gallon, this is one that we recently redid in the Day in the Fish Room series. We've got the koi angelfish there, 2 Ultim angelfish, some random rainbows, and my one clownfish there that I know people are going to yell at me that he's alone, but he's doing really well. He's fat and happy and very interactive fish. I really like him. But we recently rescaped it with the jungle val and some Cryptwendetta there. And the water line is low because of the Greg Sage method of the overflow system without drilling a tank, because this was tempered. But this the hydro in this tank's not doing that well, so I might have to replace it with something else. But otherwise, I'm starting to enjoy this tank again. And then next to these guys, we've got the breeders of the black Medaka ricefish. These guys are super skittish. I don't know why. I had them for 2 months in quarantine in a higher tank, and they were super interactive. And then I moved them down low, and I guess they don't like the things above them. So every time I walk by, they're scrambling, but they still are breeding in here, and I pull and switch out this moss every 2 weeks. But I think I'm going to move them to a higher tank so that they're more comfortable. Maybe I'll get some more eggs that way, that they're not terrified half the time. Moving on to the next rack, we'll start with these guys up here. These I just got last week, the Medaka rice fish from Dance Fish. They're pretty much like a platinum, except they like glow. They have this glow to them that is really nice. You really see it from the top down view. Let's see if we can get any. You can see how it's like a silvery glow. I really like these guys, and you could really appreciate them either from the top down or the side. So I'm happy to get these. This next tank is just a holding tank with some anacharis in there. Something I don't recommend doing, but has been working so far, thankfully, just because I'm out of tank space. We have this yellow male Betta in here, and he's got a buddy in this tank. See if we can find him. Oh, he's here right up front. A dwarf pea puffer. And they get along just fine. You know, no one's going after the other one. Occasionally the beta will flare at this guy, but you know, they've been in this tank setup for 3 months, and it's been working so far. I'm just out of tank space, so there's nowhere to put them. So I took a chance, put them together, and they're working just fine. But this is not their permanent setup at all. It's just something before the expansion. This next tank we have my only spawn of the Blue Daisy's rice fish. This is when I had 2 females, and I did get, you know, a good number of fry, so I'm waiting to grow these guys out to get some more females added to that group. We have some Salvinia up top to absorb some of the nitrates, because a newer fish again in the fish room. These guys are also in quarantine, but I had nowhere to put them. These Longfin blue-eyed lemon plecos. I got 4 in here, so that's why the water's a little stirred up and there's a lot of detritus in there. But they're almost ready to go to the 40-gallon tank with the short fin variety and grow out in there. In this next tank, we've got 2 females, Bettas. We have a nice Nemo koi right here. And the one in the breeder net is a yellow that I'm going to breed that male to once I do get the space. We got some hairgrass, regular hairgrass in here that I never found a place for, so it's just sitting in there. We got some floating plants. But again, just a temporary setup while I am expanding. These are some super red koi angelfish that I have posted currently for sale. I like to sell them between nickel and quarter size, so these are what I have left from my first spawn of them. They have a nice high orange coverage. I might keep like that guy in the back to grow out, maybe this guy in the front. But I've been sending a lot of good ones out. People really like them, and it's just some floating wisteria in here. This next tank is my Cull male Guppy tank with the one random danio in there. So I'm able to cull the males by putting them in this tank and then bringing these guys to Petco for Petco to sell. These aren't ugly guppies. They're just not the fancy strains that I'm selling. These are the misfit males. There is one male in here that I'm keeping my eye on that I might keep. Let's see if I can see him. Oh, right there. That one is from the Japan Blue Gold Double Sword line. You can see he's got a red body instead of a blue body. So that might be a fun project to, you know, if he turns out to be really cool looking. Like right now his swords aren't even developed. But as soon as I saw that red, I pulled him out. He's the first red one I've gotten in the months and months I've been breeding them. But that would be cool to start a separate line if he turns out cool and I can separate some females before they get hit by any of the males in the main tank. And in this 5.5 gallon, we've got the mop in there that I just put in last week of the Longfin white clouds. So it's hard to see, but all throughout here we have tiny, tiny little fry that are hatching out over the course of these last couple days. And below these guys, we've got the super dumbo dragon guppies. These guys I bought as young, very young fish, and they are growing up nice now. I think these females are ready to drop soon. In this tank, we have pretty much the supply of my Plecos Stemmon octopus in the whole fish room. It does really well in this tank, but this has my metallic nebulous steel guppies. These are a really popular strain. I had all my breeders, that they were all from the same original batch, and you can see that guy's he's one of the last ones of my original breeders. And I was selling them so quickly, I forgot to keep some for myself, and over the course of a month, I lost all my breeders just because they're a year and a half, 2 years old, and guppies don't live that long. So I have a bunch of fish growing out to select some breeders. In this tank, we have the bluegrass high dorsal strain. This is a strain, if you've been following, I've been really struggling with. They do not acclimate well to my water. They acclimated to brackish water. It's the only way I had to save them. These are the only 2 left of 6 fish that I bought. I bought 1 trio, lost them all, had to buy another trio, almost lost these guys. But luckily I do have some fry, we'll see in a bit. I'll tell you more about that journey. And these 2 tanks are my platinum red mosaic dumbo ear. These guys get 2 tanks. These are one of the first ones that I started breeding for profit, and I really like them. You can see that they have the nice dumbo ears. Like this male here is a male from the previous generation who was my breeder male. So in this tank we have my breeders with the big females, and this tank is where I put any males. Really I have to do this week. All these fry in here I would throw in here to grow out. Any males that I see sexing out in here, young, I throw in here. Because occasionally you get a male that doesn't look right, and I don't want them mixing with my breeders. And then if I see they don't look right in here as they grow up, they go into the misfit tank. But luckily it doesn't happen too often. Something I'm working on that popped up in this generation, I don't think I'm going to be able to find her. One of the females has like a rainbow tail, and I think it's something different and something cool. I like the big blue tail, and you could see some of them are developing like yellow in the tail and some black dorsal fins. Yeah, I don't see her, but there's a female in here with a rainbow tail that I really like, that I'm probably going to choose as a breeder and put her in a separate tank completely with my best male and see if I can get that rainbow tail out of the females. So there's obviously a lot of fish in this tank, and what helps with the bio load, we have the auto water change system changing 15% every other day. But what also helps is the pothos plant that's in both of these tanks. What I noticed when I got back there to do some maintenance, that the pothos plant actually got really long, and I was able to get it to start growing up there, so hopefully get it going around the fish room. Also the jungle val, I didn't realize how thick it is, but this is a 20 gallon. I'm trying to get back here. You can see it goes all the way back, and it's really thick, so it's probably really good for the fish that way as well. Lots of cover for fry, but they always like hanging up at the front because they know food's coming. And below these guys we've got my breeding group of Stirbai Corydoras. No eggs from them yet. I have bred them before by accident, but now that I'm trying to do it on purpose, they don't really breed for me unless, they look like they're about to breed. So unless they're laying eggs and eating them right away and I don't see them, which is probably the case, Hopefully I catch them at the right time. This next tank is just completely taken over by that random hygro plant. You can see it's starting to grow out of the water here. But this got my tequila sunrise guppies and a breeding group of albino corys. I kind of just let this tank go because I'm not enjoying the tequila sunrise guppies, and in normal times I would just bring them to probably my local club and you know, find a new home for them that way. But right now during quarantine there's no club meetings or anything like that, so I'm kind of stuck with these guys for right now. Same thing with this group of dumbo ear red tail guppies. This is my first attempt at them. I didn't like the way that they weren't breeding that true. So these are just two tanks that I'm not enjoying, that kind of just are waiting for quarantine to end so I can rehome these guys. But these guys are my super red koi angelfish, my breeding pair here. These are really nice. I got these from Angels Plus originally as tiny fish, and they grew up. These were the best looking ones, so luckily they paired off. We'll see those fry later. And in this tank we've got scuds tank and some random shrimp that made it in here, and snails that made it in here probably on this plant. But I'm hoping to start a scuds culture there. You can see them swimming around. And starting on this last rack here, we'll go to this tank of angelfish fry. These fry are from the pair that we just saw of the super reds, and also a pair that we'll be seeing in a couple tanks, the Philippine blue angelfish. Lots of fry in here. You know, it took me a couple tries to figure out the best method that I liked, how to raise the eggs up. So these guys are all growing out, and they'll be separated once the new rack is built. This tank has the guppy fry of the bluegrass big dorsal strain. And the story with these is I put the female in here by herself because she looked like she was about to drop, but she was also fighting a really, really bad bacterial infection. Ended up throwing every day a ton of salt in here and erythromycin. And thankfully she made it, and she did have the fry in here. So these guys are growing up. The first feeding of baby brine, live baby brine, I fed a lot by accident. I figured I'd siphon out the dead ones later. I go back, you know, at the end of the day, and the brine shrimp are still alive and swimming in the tank. So there was so much salt in here that the brine shrimp was able to live the entire day and the next day in this tank with the guppy fry. So it was really good for the guppy fry. They had a constant supply of food, but there was so much salt in here. That's what I was trying to avoid with imported guppies and them being raised in brackish water. So I ended up having to change the water out. So now these guys are in 100% fresh water, doing well. But sometimes with some strains, people don't realize it's a lot of work in the beginning. That's why some are just really expensive, because they're either freshly imported or somebody spent a lot of time, a lot of generations getting them used to fresh water so they don't crash on people here in the United States. This next tank has my breeding group of the orange Medaka rice fish. Started with a group of 8 and bred several hundred. I was able to distribute them out into the hobby, and I kept the ones that, you know, I liked the best, that I think would improve the line, like this guy right here in the middle. He's got a nice orange to him, and his fins even have orange. So he's going to be probably one of the main breeder males when I do breed them again. In this tank we have the dwarf chain sword and the pearlweed in the back. And this next tank has my mostly celestial pearl danios in here. We have some random white clouds that were pulled as fry from the main tank that I didn't want to get eaten. And these random guppy males were being held as the cull males before I had that misfit tank available. And then this tank did get ick, and we beat the ick, but I don't want to put the males with the other males just yet. I want to make sure, like, probably a month has gone by that we don't have any ick before I mix them back in there. And in this tank we have the Gardneri Killifish, both the standard form and the gold form. I mix them when I'm not breeding them. They all live together. They don't discriminate. We got the gold male in the back there, coming up front. One of these Gardneri males was actually also in the sump somehow. I don't know how it's possible. We have the matin filter in the back, and then it's the overflow. I don't even think they fit in the overflow. So I don't know if he was living in there as a fry or an egg that hatched and lived in there for a while. But it's pretty amazing. These guys are really hardy. And we have the failing Bacopa in the back. I go back and forth to give up on it or not. And I was about to pull it out, and then you notice the new growth here after a month of having the Bacopa like that. Finally some growth. So I'm gonna give it a couple more weeks and see if we get any growth. And in this tank we have another variety of the Super Dumbo Dragon Guppies. These ones are from Tamed Waters. There's my original male right there. They're clearly different, so I'll have to figure out the naming. I'll have to look at my receipts and see if I'm calling one of them wrong. But they're in this 10 gallon right now. I lost the 2 females that came with the trio, but they both had fry right before. And I'm trying to see if these guys breed true. There's some variety with the males, and this strain was one of those. We have the prettiest female strain. So far, none of the females look pretty, but they're still young. But some of the males are sexing out. We could see the color there. This is the only tank with lava rock in it. Some frog bit and some Pogostem and Salas octopus. Lots of red ram's horn snails here. I've been feeding them heavy. So there's lots of snails in here. In this 5 gallon, we've got some 24 karat gold guppies I have as kind of a backup in case something happens to the main tank. And then also the last spawn of the orange Medaka rice fish. They're just commingling in here just fine. And below these guys we have some Wapoga red laser rainbowfish that I'm gonna breed pretty soon. Just waiting for more tanks to be available that I could throw the mop in. And we have that Nemo koi male Betta that we're gonna breed with that female that we saw earlier. And the main setup for this tank, which you can't really see them, there's one right there, is the reticulated hillstream loach. I have 4 right now. That's all that made it through quarantine. But the stones I have in here I got from Home Depot, and they were just like the river rock, the big pebbles. And they love going in between the rocks, and I'm hoping that they'll breed somehow between the rocks. The plan here is Pogostem Hellfry, I believe. We've got some random Manzanita driftwood pieces, some Madagascar lace plant, and then a random Liguigia species. This tank has been in limbo since quarantine started, so a couple months. I set it up. I escaped it. I'm still experimenting with the plants as I have the time now, but I got this nice tree stump piece of Manzanita driftwood from Manzanita Direct. Really good company. We've got the Liguigia species. I ended up moving my pair of Longfin super red bristlenose plecos. Kind of see the one hiding behind the sponge filter there. And the male's in the cave, and he's fanning, but there's no eggs, so I think they're ready to breed. We've also got some random red arc pencilfish in here that I forgot were in the 40 breeder with the Bozeman Rainbowfish. It was so thick with jungle val, they got lost in there, and I assumed that the archerfish that was in there ate them, but they survived, so I moved them in here. We've also got, this is where the green laser corys were moved to. You can see one right there, but I've got 8 in here so far. I have to catch that 9th one out of the other tank so he could be with his buddies. And we do have the dwarf chainsword in here that didn't take off as well as it did in this tank. So these were planted at the exact same time from the exact same source. And you can see, this is a good example. So this is what was grown out of water and shipped to me. And this is the new growth that's grown out from under the water. And you can see that with each plant. Some of them I cut because there was algae growing, like this one. Algae on it because it's transitioning from immersed grown to submerged grown. You can see the long fins on that super red. Give us a little peek. But you can see here, you know, the new growth, nice and green, and the runners are going. You can still see some of the old leaves there that I left, but not doing so well in this tank. This tank, I'm waiting for the fish, the main fish of this tank from Select Aquatics, once he's shipping again, and once those fish are available. And in this tank we have the albino red ear koi guppies. These are the only albinos you'll see in my fish room. I normally don't like albinos, but these guys I've been trying to get for so long. I'm so happy I got them. The females are really nice. You can see the nice red pectoral fins there. The males are nice too. Almost a full orange with some white. You got the blue ramshorn snails in here and the yellow shrimp. The breeder nets I have in here are because we switched from quarantine mode to breeding mode. Got the auto feeder on here. And finally, we've got some fry of these guys. These guys are major fry eaters, so they need to be in a net or a breeder box or something for me to catch any. These guys were actually born in the tank, and even with the Pocostamensauce octopus, the frog bit completely covering the top of the tank with all the roots, I was only left with 6 fry. So the other ones I assumed were eaten. And we have the one female who I think is around ready to drop in this breeder net with some guppy grass in there. You know, I'm hoping that she'll have some fry soon and I can take her out of there. And then right here we have the eggs of the Philippine blue angelfish that are, once they hatch, I'll move them to a separate tank. But right now they're just in the methane blue with the air stone. Below those guys are these orange Medaka rice fish. These are the ones I have for sale, and the last I'll have until I start breeding them again. But they're in this 20-gallon, doing well, and I can look at them, you know, with the lid open and appreciate them the way that they were, you know, meant to be. But I still like them from the side view. And right over there we have about 1 month old fry of the Bozemanai Rainbowfish. So you can see you can tell they're rainbowfish now. No color yet, obviously. We got a good number of them for a first attempt. And also in here we have the super red bristlenose from Wild Fish Tanks. So those guys are going to go in the 40 breeder once they finish up their quarantine. These are much better quality than the ones that I had. So I'm going to continue with this line versus the one I had. And these are the red tail dumbo ear guppies that were a different strain. The ones that we saw earlier, this is a different, it's the same strain, but it's a different source. So these guys are breeding a little bit more true, and I like the way that they look from the top-down view. So these guys are doing well, and I'm going to continue with this line and donate the other line to somebody, maybe someone who just wants a fancy guppy tank. And in this tank we have the breeding pair of the Philippine blue angelfish. They're kind of being blocked by this breeder box here. You can kind of see them there. In the breeder box we have fry that became free swimming while I was away. So there's not a lot in here. I had to give them instructions over the phone to try to save these guys. So there's a couple in here, maybe 20 or so. And in this tank we have the tuxedo koi guppies. So I remember these being available everywhere and super cheap. So I never really wanted them. And then when I finally did want them, they weren't available. So I actually had to get them from somebody who imported them. and then I bought a fry pack from the imported guppies that they had. So ended up with, I bought 6, and I ended up with 4 males and 1 female. So terrible ratio. Lost one along the way. So I had to wait for these to grow up, and then I put the female in this breeder net, and she was in there for a while just to protect her from all the males, and then also if she dropped any fry. So this has been a labor of love with these guys to get some fry, but finally, just the other day, we have a ton of fry in this breeder net. So I'm really excited about that. I'm gonna have to do something with that female. She's constantly getting harassed by all these males. She was in the net yesterday, and now she's out, and they're all over her. So I'll have to do something for her. Once the fry are big enough, maybe I'll put her back in the net. But I'm really excited to have the fry. It's a several month process when you have to buy fry, grow them up, and then wait for new fry. But I'm happy that I have these guys. And this tank is in a sad state. Haven't done any maintenance on it or fertilized it, so we got some algae. Because probably right after I film this video, it's going to be moved, taken down, and for the new rack, because this is where the rack's going. But this is where I had the angelfish, all my angelfish before they started pairing off. I have 2 in here that are getting along. I haven't seen eggs from them, so I don't know if they're a pair. Some rummy-nosed tetras. I've got one hillstream loach that I've had for probably 3 years now that I'm gonna catch out and put with the others in the breeding group, and the Siamese algae eater there. I'm gonna reuse the sand. I'm excited to use the sand in other tanks, mix it up a bit from having Eco Complete. But yeah, this tank's gonna go. So that was a full tour of the fish room before we add the new rack and change some things around. Thank you all so much for your support and for watching my videos. Again, if you saw anything you liked or you were interested in, most of the stuff is available at fishboyusa.com. Subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see you in the next video.